Just to remind you that the International Health Regulations, that's the legal framework for the global health security. And the objective is to ensure public health security, but in minimizing international interference in terms of transport and trade, and also to meet international public health obligation, but in respecting national sovereignty. There are two main points in this framework which is important to underline. The first one is the IHR doesn't distinguish between natural, deliberate, or accidental. So it means that the CBRN, for instance, is included in the framework of the IHR. And there are two fundamental components. The first, that the fact that this surveillance, this alert system, this response system should be managed internationally with a coordinated monitoring and information system. But also here, which is very important, that one of the objectives of the International Health Regulation, that's also to ensure that there is a capacity at national level to cope with the obligation of the IHR. And here, when we are talking about strengthening of national capacities, the epidemiology is at the crossroad of many international health regulation activities. That's epidemiological surveillance, that's risk assessment, alert, outbreak investigation, health control at the border, and crisis and post-crisis evaluation of control activities. So for all these activities, the role of AP are very important. And in that sense, having a FETP, that's a very important tool because that's a network which ensure a reliable field epidemiologist able to react, to prepare and to react at country level, and also having trained supervisors. And with this kind of network, we can expect that everybody will work with the same technical language, with the same working methods. Here, I'm just going to give you an example of how this FETP could react at regional level. And to me, that's really what we can expect from this FETP. It's moving from a national capacity to a regional capacity. I'm just back from the biggest pneumonic plague outbreak ever reported for one century in Madagascar. And we had, WHO had deployed FETP's member from a program of the Indian Ocean, and they were part of the response. They were deployed under WHO. And we had several junior epidemiologists who were directly involved in control operations, such as contact tracing, suspected death investigation, data analysis, or even control at the border. So we had people coming from Seychelles Island, for instance, or from La Réunion, the French territory, deployed in Madagascar. And all these people were used to work together. They had absolutely the same language, and they were already integrated in the Malagasy health surveillance system. So to me, what are the coming challenges? I think that's very important that each country understands that in deploying its AP, national APs to take part in regional crisis, it's important that the countries understand that's all benefit for their own countries. When you deploy your AP to your neighboring countries to help controlling crisis, all this experience which will be gained on the field by the AP will be of super added value in your own country. So that's important that all the countries taking part of this FETP understand that. Of course, there are challenges in terms of administration and logistics, including when we are in a crisis situation. In terms of security, you have challenge, and it can be an obstacle for the countries to deploy their own national AP. And also it's important that there is a strong field supervision, first for the people to work efficiently, but also for a matter of security. And WHO at least could provide with this security and this framework, technical framework with supervision. But WHO is not the only one. There are other structures which are able to take advantage of this AP. It could be other international UN agencies such as UNICEF, for instance, which is also involved in crisis. But it could be, for instance, ECDC. And the other coming challenge to me is that to ensure that we have an integrated approach. And for topics such as One Health, it's very important that our EP are coming from health structure, from Ministry of Health, are able to closely work with their colleagues from agriculture, environment, animal health. This is the same issue with biosecurity, CBRN, and it's important that everybody knows and is used to work with colleagues from defense, national security, or law. And it's important that for each of these different domains of the global health security, we try to obtain a kind of similar, something similar to FETPs in this sister Ministry of Health. So it's important that similar capacities are also developed among our counterparts at national level. So I will stop here because my colleague has still a lot of things to do. Thank you.
So, from WHO perspective, FATP is very needed in during crisis to have people who can react using same language, same methods, working methods, and to work under supervision of the supervisors to respond to crisis. Do you have any questions regarding this presentation?
Thank you, Eric, for highlighting actually the many aspects and many fields that served through the field epidemiology training program's capacity. And actually, most of these activities and roles are implemented and achieved on the national level by somewhat degree. And actually, my question is, what are the criteria and the rules for deployment of FETP teams regarding to the response for the either regional or global crisis?
To me, I can just reply for WHO. We have a system which is called GOAN. GOAN, that's a Global Outbreak Alert and Response Network. And through this mechanism, we have members of this network, which are institutions, which are laboratories, etc. And we could have deployed, including individuals or from countries, under the WHO banner. And so they are part of outbreak response team, and they have an insurance coverage. They are supervised. They produce a report at the end of their mission. And this is organized very well. Well, this is for the WHO. Now for the other structure, I don't know how is it organized. But at least for the WHO, we have very strict rules. That's a matter of logistics, but also of security.
Good afternoon. My speech about the CBRN CO initiative and the main objective of CBRN CO initiative with regard to the CO regional project and connection with our project. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and pleasure for me to address the MEDIPIAT Annual Scientific Conference. I want to use this opportunity and thank the organizer, in particular MEDIPIAT Consortium and leadership of the MEDIPIAT project for the invitation and for the opportunity to address today's gathering. We believe that MEDIPIAT Annual Scientific Conference is one more opportunity for participants and national representatives to compare and to share regional problems and to discuss the way how to solve these regional problems. And we also expect that this conference will play a positive role for setting new goals and ambitions. It should be noted that the Medipiad programs is very much in line with the objectives of the CBRN-CO initiative. To enhance regional and interregional cooperation between partner countries. Since regional secretariats coordinate CBRN activities at a regional level, liaising with the national focal points and national CBRN teams. Now let me say a few words about the Medipiad project. And as you know, 18 countries of the Mediterranean, Balkans, and Black Sea basins are partners in the Medipiad programs, but not all countries involved in the Medipiad are CBRN partner countries, CO countries. From our regional, which is Southeast and Eastern Europe region, which covers two sub-regional, Balkans and the Black Sea region. We are 10 countries, and 9 countries of our region are involved in the Medipiad program, such as Albania, Armenia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Georgia, Macedonia, Moldova, Montenegro, Serbia, and Ukraine. As most of you already know, the Medipiad program and project, especially Project 36, has been implemented under an umbrella of CO initiative since January 2014. It should be noted that among EU funding projects within the CBRN CO initiative, Project 36 is one of the valuable projects, and I'm very delighted that it has been implemented successfully. I am pleased to see that this project provided a real benefit. I have participated in several activities within the project, and I know how much important this project is for our region. The Regional Secretariat for Southeast and Eastern Europe actively supported and will always support such kind of project in future. Besides, Medipiad is very important since in some countries of the region no other assistance programs are provided on this topic. It's well known that regional projects in general facilitate and strengthen the establishment of the network between professionals, which is very significant in solving different problems at the regional level. And then this Medipiad project gave a great chance to extend collaboration and to have close partnership with specialists from Mediterranean, Balkan, and Black Sea regions. It has made an extraordinary network of experts and institutions, and this is the main objectives of the EU CBRN CO initiative to mitigate CBRN risk and the risk of CBRN threats. It's obvious that diseases know no borders, and therefore regional and international cooperation is extremely important for scientists to exchange information on the new diseases, epidemiology best practice. We believe that this is one of the added value of the Medipiad programs, and it's very much in line with the objectives of COU. The EU CBRN Regional Secretariat assists partner countries in the region in building capacity to assess and address needs as well as identify expertise. The main objectives of the CBRN CO initiative and regional secretariat activity is to assist partner countries in drafting national CBRN action plans. A solid interaction between the country's CBRN national action plans and effective training systems of field epidemiologists might be emphasized. Since countries' CBRN national action plans highlights the needs for effective training systems of field epidemiologists. In this respect, a joint effort and cooperation between the training epidemiologists and the CBRN national teams in partner countries might be reasonable and helpful in some cases. For instance, in some countries of our region, trained experts have facilitated CBRN team in drafting particular part of the CBRN National Action Plan. So as we see, such kind of cooperation is mutually beneficial. In addition, gaining knowledge and experience from the Medipiat project might be applied and maybe incorporated in the civil protection and national response plans of the partner countries. Also, involvement in the Medipiat project is one of the major obligations within the association agenda between the European Union and some countries of our region on the concept of development in the public health fields. Also, it should be noted that synergies of the epidemiology training programs with other CBRN risk mitigation and threat reduction programs and projects supported by EU's CBRN CO, WHO, US, CDC should be taken into account. This program and project, together this Medipiat and FETP, containing training components for field response personnel. For instance, fire brigades, police, field criminal investigators, emergency medical cares. In addition, the programs and project contain training, education component, on-site response to biosafety and biosecurity cases. We believe that the role of epidemiology training programs in the global health security is highly important. Medipiat with Medilab Secure and other programs and projects in a respective field covers more or less the same geographical area, Mediterranean, Black Sea countries, Central Asia, focusing on the different component of biosafety and biosecurity. So intensive and solid cooperation and frequent interaction needed between them. I mean, exchange of knowledge, experiences, information about training, trainees, field activities, scientific research, human health security, rare cases in the region. Having training field epidemiologists is important not only in case of a natural disaster outbreak, but also to effectively detect possible cases of bioterrorism and agroterrorism. In this regard, effective cooperation and coordination between law enforcement and the health sector is crucial. Recently, we have also faced a number of different security challenges. The challenges are new, and we all have to tackle them together. Illegal migration, a large number of refugees, which flow to Europe. This is quite problematic for some countries, particularly for Balkan region. We believe that possible continuation of the Medipiat project could also focus on reinforcing the link between health and security sector. And to end, on behalf of our CBRN Regional Secretariat, we would like to emphasize our very positive impression with the implementations and outcomes of the Medipiat project. We also believe that the European Commission, in particular DevCo, is very delighted with the outcomes of this project too. Finally, we can conclude that the Medipiat project has succeeded to create a strong regional expert training network of supervisors, trainers, training centers, and fellows committed and prepared to take forward in a sustainable manner the continuity of the regional FETP. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. So from CBRN perspectives, we have here two types of demands. We need to have cooperation, collaboration, partnership, networking, solid interaction, exchange of information, of knowledge, but also we need to have capacity building, identifying expertise, and training people. Thank you very much. Now we'll go to our third panelist, Dr. Van Loek from DG Santé.
Dear Nada, dear colleagues, thank you very much for allowing me to be here. I don't know what hat I should put on for the moment. Should I put my commission hat? Should I put my FETP had, EPIET had, or MedEPIET had. Let's take all four. But I've been committed to FETP since now 31 years. And EPIET has added to the FETP one or three, I should say, additional layers. The first layer, it's a regional program. Per definition, because the regional adds an interest that one does not achieve at national level. The second layer of interest that it adds is it's built in the process by selecting already on international exchange. And third, it adds significantly more modules and competencies than many of the other FETP programs. MedEPIET has been built along the same lines, again here with the regional and in bold and underlined and in yellow, regional as a very high additional value. Additionally came IHR, which generated a new dimension that we had to respond to, and that's the need to take much more care on preparedness, to know how to deliver, to know how to assess, and to build also that strength that was needed. That's a challenge that the colleagues in ECDC and you in MedEPIET are sure working on already. We all engage into this process. And third, the theme of the day, the global health, adds, I think, still a layer. We were, as Commission, one of the signing partners in the establishment of GORN in 2001, underlying the need to build this partnership, but also to have frontline goers, frontline staff to be able to be detached for the necessary time to go and investigate. And secondly, the colleagues in ECHO are, through the civil protection mechanism, establishing the European Medical Corps. And maybe, Paula, can I ask you to put the one slide on? I just developed one slide with some ideas of attention that I think would be worthwhile to look upon this new challenge, to be able to look upon global health. I want to underline that you know and you should know before you go on an outbreak, be it local or be it international, the legal frame in which you operate. You should know if you investigate a Legionnaire's disease outbreak where your mayor's office is so that he can tell you what the rules are, but also internationally what IHR says on what the countries have to develop and how you respond to this and to whom. Secondly, know the needs of your decision makers, both epidemiologically in description and perspective that you bring, and know that these people want feedback. I mean, we give a lot of Commission's financial input to EPIET and to MedEPIET. We feel that it should be necessary that all the ones going are able to give rapid feedback. But also tell information to your decision makers, which is totally different. I mean, if you talk about vaccine coverage, we talk to colleagues and you say, well, we have for measles 95% with a confidence interval of plus or minus 2, and we're happy with that, but your decision maker does not understand that. Because he says 95%, whoa, that's good. No, you have to tell him. In the EU, if I talk to my decision takers in the Commission, we have 6.5 million children not immunized for measles. That's what he will understand. It's a different language, it's still saying the same thing. Third, One Health issues. And AMR, of course, in this One Health, get to know your colleagues. You know your colleagues, but get to know your veterinary colleagues, get to know your maybe hunters or your horse associations to, if you deal with West Nile virus, and your birth watchers who can help you get the right information. We're living in this One Health approach, and it's essential that we step into it together. Fourth, as I said before, preparedness planning. We have the World Health Organization looking. We have in our action plan on AMR assessments. We have the needs to help understand how far countries are. And if we would have known how bad Guinea and the two other African countries were prior to Ebola, if we would have dared to say how bad they were in their preparedness planning to tackle such a threat, maybe the threat would not have been so bad as it was. Fifth, create advocacy, know how to generate the action, not just wait for the scientific publication. You are responsible to, as in the international field, to rapidly get back information to the ones who can change, to the WHO if they send you out, to GORN if they send you out, to get the information so that action can be generated rapidly. When local becomes global, well, think of it when you go even on a small outbreak. I may be wrong, but I thought it was in the summer when in Spain, was it Madrid or was it Barcelona, where men having sex with men were gathering and first hepatitis A event in that group was identified. Well, in that group, we knew that that group was going to travel around, that they had international contacts. We could have known that it was going to appear in France, in the Netherlands, in Belgium, in a lot of European countries in the weeks and months later. So get to know your behavior and inform rapidly that we are going from a local to a global threat. From humanitarian to health crisis and from health to humanitarian crisis. Think of Haiti with, or Yemen with the cholera outbreaks, how that also reinforces itself. And to that end, we are establishing the European Medical Corps to come in assistance of international medical response to this. And our colleagues in the humanitarian operations in the commissions are coordinating that further. But it's important to understand when you're in the field to link those two and to be aware of it. 8, as a fellow in the field, and if you're global even more, think of your own accountability. You're accountable for your data that you're collecting, for looking in a proper way at your data, but also how you share that data or not share that data. Both needs to be taken into consideration. Take also into account that you're using public funds. You are paid, you are on travel, and that too has a certain accountability in itself, and ethics and necessary timeliness to report on it has that thing much more than you would have in a local event. 9th, participate to supervised international assignments. Yes, I mean, it's obvious that we want this to happen, but at the same time, the supervision in the field during the process, I think, is essential. Otherwise, it's very difficult to make a good investigation if you don't have that proper backup. And finally, for all FETPs, I mean, it's easy to engage in the international setting, but at the same time, it's a perfect recipe for losing your staff later because they will find a job somewhere else. So find a way to retain your staff in your FETP. Find a way to retain, to keep them somehow working into your environment. Otherwise, the funds invested in that training might not end up where it belongs. They might not be the best attention points that I gave you, but they're just 10 different thoughts that I wanted to share this afternoon with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So here we have 10 points to know by heart. So in summary, the main function of the epidemiologist is not to publish papers, but to make decision makers saving life. Thank you very much.
Frank has 4 affiliations, 4. So I have at least two affiliations. I'm a Medipiet member of the family of Medipiet, and recently I joined MFNet since 1 year. I would say I have the third family. It's a Tunisian FETP, but it's recently born. So I will talk about the MFNet experience, and I will share with you this what we are thinking about FETP and the FETP community and like this. MFNet, as you know, is one of the regional networks which was built through the world to support and to help countries to develop their FETPs. So MFNet cover the Euro-Mediterranean area. That means the North Africa, the Gulf region, and up to Afghanistan and Pakistan, 22 countries. Right now, MFNet is supporting 10 FETPs, 10 countries. That means we have in the region only up to now 10 programs. That means 12 countries or not yet may be available, may be committed to develop their FETP. We are working with them to develop our advocacy because our regional network as AFINET, as EPIET, as some other, and as the TEFINET, which is the global network which is working under the global framework, which is the global health agenda, and then the global health security, and then the IHR, and we share the same framework, and we are sure the operational framework for all of this agenda and global agenda is the national FETP. So we are looking for to develop many effort, many activity to advocate the need to fill the gap of field epidemiology core competency in the countries. The main operational framework is the health system in each country. When the country is develop a capacity building, that means develop the skills of the health workforce in each country in terms of field epidemiology. That means the framework to prevent, to detect, and to respond for any threat, public health threat in the country. That means they will develop their role to protect the global and to share experience. The big problem here is all the joint external evaluation done through the world highlight that there is a big need to develop the core competency of field epidemiology in each country. So we need the FETPs and based on the MFNet experience and the picture of our region, we have three situations. We have the older programs, which is born 20 years or 25 years ago, and we had 4 programs in that situation, and the program which were developed since 2010, 4 programs, and the newly programs, we developed 2 new programs in 2017 in 2 countries, and the picture is different. The older programs has a big problem now to be maintained. There is 2 issues which are very important to build this capacity of field epidemiology to the health workforce: the sustainability and the ownership. In our health system, there is a big problem with sustainability because the FETP is considered as a capacity building program, and it should be hosted and honored by the Ministry of Health. But for our countries, many Ministry of Health has every time the big problem for funding and for governance and like this, and it's not so easy to tell them that field epidemiology, it's a big task of the health system. It's a big job of the health system. We have to develop this. We have to put money for this. We have to encourage them and to empower the program. It's not so easy to to tell them when they have to face many problems, such as funding problems or like this. So this is a big problem, how to convince them to have a sustainable program and to do we try to work with them and to tell them there is a big needs. And we are working now on the health mapping, how much we need as epidemiologists in each country. We use maybe in some countries the rate of 1 for 200,000 people, but the need is more important than that. So we developed somewhere with them many effort, and we try to help them, to support them technically, maybe also for financial issue, to have a sustainable program. For the second type of programs, the recent, we maintained financial support and technical support, and we have for each cohort somewhere 10 or 20 new residents, and we are working with the ministry to help them to develop a career path to have these skilled people inside the system, and the retention rate should be very well accepted by the Ministry of Health. And for the new one, we are constructing some other models. We are developing now the intermediate model, and we are helping people countries to develop the frontline courses, because we know that there is a big need in the district level and the frontline level, and we are encouraging countries to develop this. So based in these experiences, I can add some other data. We are trying in our network to develop, to face the regional crisis. I mean, Frank has spoken about the recent crisis of the ongoing crisis of cholera in Yemen. And here, our FETP, Yemen FETP, which was developed since 2009, the FETP's graduate contribute to the strategy to face and to tackle the cholera, since some of them are already at the central level and are involved in the strategy. Some of them are trying to do some activity for prevention in some remote area, and we construct our expert roster, and some experts of the country, of the region, were sent to help at the regional level. We push our FETP to develop scientific publication and to share case study and develop case study as a learning tool, but as a sharing experiences, because it's very important to share this. But I know national FETPs alone will not be able to develop and to contribute on the global health security. We are facing, we need, our needs are very important for the future, upcoming period, and we should work all together to develop our capacity in the region, and we will share our capacity when there is a crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for ENFNet. So for ENFNet, FETP is for health authorities a tool to develop skills regarding skills of public health workforce and to exchange information. Now we'll go to the EPIET with Dr. Carmen Varela.
Thank you, Nada, and thank you for inviting me. It's very difficult to add something new to all what has been already said, because there are important common reflections. But if I think that something could be raised now is the dynamic environment in which we live. Because I think that some of you mentioned the aspect of the needs and the difference between the countries. I think that we need to start always identifying what are the needs for capacity and what are the training needs. And this is a very challenging exercise. We have definitely the experience in our European setting with all the member states and with different perspectives in terms of what do we need in terms of field epidemiology training. Do we need the FETPs? Do we need the continuous professional development programs? Are they linked to each other? In which competencies we should train our professionals? And definitely, I think it's very important to see how inclusive we should be in field epidemiology, because we need to work together with other professionals like public health microbiologists, with the animal health authorities, with biostatisticians, bioinformaticians. We have 100 of different disciplines. I was discussing this when preparing the debate, and would we be ever able to map all the disciplines? I think it's necessary to have a particular event, a particular incident, a public health emergency, to start analyzing it. But then I think there is a positive side, there is a way of doing this, and it's the analysis of what are the core competencies that need to be there for field epidemiology, but also for others. And even more important, because of the complexity of our setting, I would say that we need to analyze better how those different disciplines work together, or how those different sectors should work together. In a way, I think that this is a pending subject. I think that is something that in the FETPs comes learning by doing, as actually is the principle that we have, but it's very difficult to instill this collaboration in the classroom. That's not actually the idea. And it's something we need to explore. But I wanted to share with you as well that in the collaboration that we have between the ECDC fellowship program and with Medipiet, and along the process of exchanging more the way we work together, one of the areas where I learned that there has been a good evolution is that when discussing the core competencies for Medipiet, there was a lot of attention put on emergency preparedness, which was not there before for Epiet, for example. And I think that indeed we may still need to reconsider if it's enough, or if we should revisit those core competencies and analyze others that we may be missing. And here I'm thinking about how we link with public health microbiology, with genomics, how we link in surveillance with the access to new data sources, the so-called big data or others, how we communicate. We have been also reflecting about the fact that we may have a lot of focus on scientific communication, and it was actually raised by Frank. How do we reach the policy makers? How do we make programs that are intervention epidemiology programs? So all those reflections, I think that is very important for us. And in that sense, what I think is that we dedicate ourselves to training programs, but we still need to do more research or more analysis on how to respond better to the needs. And there, I'm not sure if I have the answer, because I think that there are many ways of doing this, but with such a diverse environment, with the different actors, we have the trainers, we have sometimes the employers are the same in the case of FETPs, but there may be others, there may be, yes, some tensions when the fellows graduate, what happens? Do they go to an institute, to the same? Are there career opportunities for them in the same? Or are they also well placed in an international organization to influence the work they do? The ideal that we sometimes dream about, that would be that there is a return of investment, that those graduates will not completely leave the training environment, but will invest what they learn by training others. So these are my reflections. I think there is still a lot to do, but in the area of global health security, I agree with the previous speakers. I personally feel that the field epidemiology training programs have a crucial role, and that we need to protect them for that, because this is really when you look at the international health regulations and at the core capacities, as it was already presented, all the curriculum of different FETPs, but I would say definitely for MediPed, includes those domains. So those are my reflections. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Piet. So here we have two ideas. We have to add a new attribute to FATP, multidisciplinarity. And also we have to think that we need to revise the core competences, to explore, do we need to have preparedness core competences, to deal with big data, to deal with advanced lab technology, to know how to communicate with decision makers, etc., etc., etc. So maybe we have to think about core competences and the need to have regular update of these CCs. Thank you very much. Now we'll go to Egypt with Dr. Sahar El-Shurbaji.
Actually, I prepared a lot of informations and a lot of papers, and all of this were done. And I don't know what I'm going to say. So forgive me for that. The question that I'm asking when the session begins, why we are talking about FATP? What is unique about FATP? I think that, and we all know that FHB is a training program will create a cadre of well-trained epidemiologists with the skills that not only to gather critical data, but also to turn it into action. The training of FHB is unique. It focuses on learning by doing. The residents are spending about 80% of their time in the field doing outbreak investigation, conducting studies, or making training for other healthcare workers. I think that FHB also build a critical relationship with our countries, where mutual beneficial relationship with ministries of health and other partners and exchanging idea and cultivate relationship between them. At the end, FHB addresses the severe worldwide shortage of skilled epidemiologists. And I think it's a unique program that gives the epidemiologists to the world. But the question here, are we ready to implement the agenda for global health security, which main constitute about to prepare, to detect, and to respond? I think that FHB program is ready for that, and I heard something from one of my colleagues, if we are ready for local emergency, so we can be ready for global one. Let me share with you the FHB in Egypt, which started in 1993. We have now graduated about 18 cohorts, and we have now cohort 19. Most of them are presenting their project with you, and thank you for that. And we are launching for cohort 20. We graduated about more than 130 of residents. I think that 80% of them are serving within the Ministry of Health. We have a problem that when we find that a very good epidemiologist, we can concentrate them at the central level. So most of them are found at the central level. That's why we get requests from the Ministry of Health that the next cohort must be divided between the central level and the governorate level, and this is what we have done in our new cohort, that take half of the residents from the central level and half of them from the governorate levels, especially the frontiers governorate, where they are facing a lot of outbreaks or emergencies, and they need some assistance and help from the central level. We incorporate the vet and the lab, and we have now 3 vets graduated from the FATP, and we have 1 lab residence in our newly cohort. This is for the advanced course of FATP, which is 2 years of FATP. We thought that this is for developing or for having epidemiologists, it's good to go on or to proceed in this 2 years, but now we are facing some problem in dealing with data, in dealing with early detection of outbreak. That's why we thought that we have to train or we have to launch for the frontline FHB, which is 3 months duration. And we finally succeeded with the coordination with the MFNet to graduate the first cohort from the program, which is called Public Health Empowerment Program. It's FAP. It is 3 months training, and we select, I think it's only Egypt that selected the sanitarians to be the residents in this program, because we believe that the sanitarians, they are the group of healthcare workers. They are the one who dealing with the data. They are the first one who get the information, and they need some training, and I hope that we can continue in this frontline training program. The question is, what is next? Are we going we are going to complete with FHB, of course, but if we are going to look at FHB by the global health security, what is next? How can we empower this program to be within the international framework? Do we need some assistance? Do we need some extra work, or do we need some continuation? This is a question for you, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much for Egypt. So from the point of view of Egypt, FATP is an investment of human resources to a cadre of skilled personnel. And also FATP can address the agenda of global health security in the domain of prevention, detection, and response. And FATP has to open the doors to labs and to vets and to other disciplines. Thank you very much. And now we'll go to Portugal with Dr. Paula Vasconcelos.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for having invited Portugal. Again, we are not an EP yet, and we are always in with you with some initiatives. So this was very nice to join, and I'm very happy that I think I got the easiest part, because I was asked to present something on continuous training, on how we do it at the Portuguese level, at our country, how we enforce the capacities in public health and epidemiology. So I'm bringing up some practical examples, and hopefully you can reflect on them, because this is, I'm just bringing what we do. And of course we do it in a peculiar way as every country, but because everything have an historical background. Maybe I should say that I don't know how many countries has already 100 years of public health officers officially implemented in the country by national, regional, and local level. It's a very old law that says that you have to have those public health officers responsible for anything that happens that can affect human health. So because of that, probably what I will come to present in very fast minutes will be just how we come up with knowing that we have those people who do the things, how on generic we train them to continue the heritage from seniors to youngers, and how do we do this? So, not forgetting that we have sometimes the explanation why we are different from the academia, and then the explanation why we do not call ourselves field epidemiology program training. Well, basically, because of this network of public health officers, historically they come from the medical background. So we have the doctors that choose public health specialization, 4 years training, and during those years, one of the main tasks are linked to detect, prevent, and respond to public health events, and as I said, at local and regional level. By the other side, as you know by my example, we are not quiet people in one single place. We go around. So how do we make ourselves joining international networks? So we are part through the European networks of EPIET and EUFEM. Besides that, we cope with all the training that the EU can offer for the public health perspective, being them health professionals or being them other professionals that they want to engage. There has been a lot of initiative in Europe that supports continuous training of on-job experts. And so, as you know, EPIET and EUFEM are really focused on outbreak investigation, intervention, so how really to control the outbreak, how to interrupt the chain of transmission. And of course, we want those people, in case they need to be deployed, that they are trained to be deployed. We consider that probably our national training could be not enough. So we always hope when we deploy people that they should be the ones who had the chance to do one of the European programs, or as we are also partners of the GORN, that they have the chance to join those multidisciplinary teams. But they are the ones for the outbreak investigation. They are the typical epidemiologists, and sometimes some of us can be also the public health experts on prevention and control. So what we always try to do with our trained people is wherever they go abroad, being that supporting just a normal outbreak, sometimes it's not huge crisis or not huge global, but you need some experts to support something by neighborhood or something because you are more experienced with that. We try to do it with the link with our deployment officers. So it's like you are really free to sail, you're really free to fly, but don't forget you have home and you have the whole planet to deal with. So just very practical, don't look at my slides because I want to show you very practical examples of Portuguese legal background. So this is just to say to you that inside the Ministry of Health, there is this public health, let's say, continuous training under the responsibility of the Human Resources Department for Planning. And it says here clearly, if you go through this, it says this department is responsible to articulate with other services, with other departments, in order to identify the needs and the priorities. So it means we have a legal background to ask people for the money for the training. Don't forget the money aspect. And under that, we also had another legal that allowed us to build up our new Public Health Emergency Operations Center. And this was fully implemented with the WHO and ECDC guests on the implementation day. Believe it or not, it was very recent, in 2016, and this legal paper says something so clear as prevention, detect, and response. It keeps the English expression, meaning this continuous training also seeing abroad, not completely at national, where we have experience to do local and regional response, but also how we are going to engage. If we are going to engage internationally, we have the Public Health Emergency Operations Center with a specific office for training and capacity building for this kind of response, for this kind of support. And of course it says, any international network, including the GORN. So it means all the other ones. So this is just to tell you that continuous training in public health and epidemiology has historical reason and now very important structures to support reinforcement. And this reinforcement has to do with the ones who know me from other sessions, preparedness. You can't do preparedness for public health emergency if you do not touch capacities, capabilities, identify your gaps and where you want to go through, and build up very skilled, competent people who know what they are doing. So we try to focus this, again, with prevent, detect, and response. And so, to conclude, on the professional perspective, for our national point of view, you can do continuous training with all this legal background, but the operational approach is because we, as officers at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center, have the accreditation to supervise and to train people. We do simple things like the newcomers at our Directorate General of Health, that's a competent body of the Ministry of Health, and we train the newcomers, just shoulder by shoulder. Then we have specific things that we can ask those departments of human resources. If we need something extra, we can negotiate and see the funds for that. And then, of course, we have the normal fellowship, how we train resident doctors. They can choose the models on emergency to do it in our Emergency Operations Center. And any other professional, can be nurses, can be hospital administrations, can be managers, can be equipment of maintenance, they can have specific training with us. And of course, going to the field, seeing outbreaks, being with the ones who are at the local and regional level and feedback us. And of course, every kind of workshop, seminars, conferences, we try to bring up this language of prevent, detect, and respond to emergencies. We have a pool of experts that we know have been trained, and they can be the ones appointed for any international assignment. And we receive also EPIETs, MEDEPIETs, and we do also national deployments. We call people from the north to support the south, or we can even go ourselves to support any regional and local outbreaks, and of course to international. So, the other way to see continuous is because you continuously meet new people, and that increases your network. And that's a very key point on how to do good things in public health. So this is the photo of our last gathering of MEDEPIETs and EPIETs last September. And as they say, health threats today are translocal and universal, but support, public health engagement, and really collaboration is cross-border.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paula. So here we have new facade for the global health security about continuous training people at all levels, local, national, international, to have public health emergency operations centers and to be prepared. So now the floor is for you. You can ask questions. So who wants to start with the first question?
Thank you for these interesting insights. And I think what is lacking maybe from the presentations I've seen, although they were very insightful, is indeed, as Carmen mentioned, data. I feel very strongly, also as an EPIET even graduate, that we are kind of missing where our people are going after the graduation. We kind of have an idea. And sometimes we're also forgetting what the needs are in the field, or we don't have a real actual up-to-date requirement of what is required from our field epidemiologists. So it's a really central question and a fundamental question for all FTPs is, what is a field epidemiologist? And it's very likely that what we are looking for in field epidemiologists is very dependent on the context of a country, of the capacity of a country. Are we talking about an organizations that very often work in emergency situations, or are we talking about graduates that are installed in a country within a routine surveillance system or a more routine environment? And that directly feeds back into the program, because are we trying to train people who all have a baseline on a certain knowledge of field epidemiology? And I call it field epidemiology, not epidemiology, because we're not training epidemiologists. Epidemiology is a much more complex field than what we are delivering in our 2 years. I think we need to keep that sharp in mind. It's like, what are we training? What are the needs for the future? And how do we incorporate it in our curriculum? And we need to be willing enough to be critical sometimes to say, okay, we've been repeating these lectures over years, and yes, we have made minor adjustments, but maybe the needs in society are changing. Yeah, so I think that's something we should definitely include in the more scientific discussions and operational discussions of our programs. We need more data on this.
I completely agree. I think that we need more data and we need more broader consultations. Actually, it's good that you, as brand new president of the EPIET Alumni Network, bring this up, because I think that it's professional associations, alumni networks, the institutes, the fellows that are now under training are probably very well positioned to give an opinion about what are the opportunities for field investigations or for projects compared to what are the needs, because they are in that setting. But I would also like to maybe throw the question towards Paula, because she referred to this concept of capacities and capabilities, of course, and competences. I think it's really important in that context of analyzing the data available regarding needs to have first a model. We call it, we use that process for the development of the competencies on public health emergency preparedness, which is a very recent publication. And there was first an analysis where you would look at the public health system and at the bigger picture of what are all the elements in terms of structures, processes, resources, and then the human element is only one part. So I agree with you. I think that we will need more research, modeling. Modeling is crucial to look at the dynamic nature of the demographics, even the population, but also the population as a workforce, because you need to see who is entering into the system and who is leaving, and what are those dynamics. So I completely agree. I don't know.
Yes, in the same way, I think I'm to agree with you. Basically, the field epidemiology training program, it's a learning program that should fit the needs of the country. So it should be built on the needs of the country and on the needs of the health system. So the first step is the needs assessment, and then we have to build a discussion about which curricula should be developed for which profile of workforce. I agree with you. Maybe we have to build basically on the core function of field epidemiology to empower the workforce health, the health workforce at the local, because if the local level is well skilled to do the framework, to develop the competency of field epidemiology, that means we will prevent, we will detect very early any public health threats, and we will respond very quick, and we will develop partnership in local, regional, with a national team, and even with global experts. So this is the main things. This is the first step, and that means the country, when the steps or the strategy is built as we said, we will have an ownership of the program, and we will have to develop a career path for those who will be graduate, and we will manage many issues related to the curriculum, and to build some things to be sustainable and to be accepted and admitted by all the workforce, because it was think according to the needs of the country.
Well, I had the same question. But I would like to still give a reflection on it, and that's the following. We have, okay, we're investing quite a bit in a training for a 2-year-long fellowship program where basically there is no return requested. So that's fine. And afterwards you can say, thank you, that was interesting, and now I take my bags and I go work for, I I don't know, Sanofi Pasteur and GlaxoSmithKline and turn your back on public health to still be involved into some good environment. But we therefore cannot organize, I think, continuous training with public health funds for people who are not committed to stay in the public health system. So that's, I think, a condition. The condition, therefore, will also gradually have to come into our systems. We will not be able to continue to fund freely just people to come in for such a long training program. I mean, there's no medical doctor who gets just a free training to do that. There is a commitment, there are tuition fees, etc. So we have to be careful on how we organize it. But it's clear that once you can organize it with some kind of a committed participation into the system, yes, I mean, from then onwards, you also should be able to find, and we should be able to find the continuous training. And indeed, we have to be careful for all these alumni who participated in these training programs is, you know, how long are they remaining able to participate and to contribute? That's difficult. And I was therefore very glad that Paul already mentioned that in Portugal they organize it, but how do we internationally organize it? How does maybe HR and WHO as an organization think of maybe putting their concept forward to update and not only on data but also on techniques? So we have to think, I think, more carefully on how we organize these returning courses. The question is good. The answer is, well, very difficult.
Thank you. I would like just to highlight one thing that related to return of investment related to field epidemiology. By sure, we are spending money now to train people, but if we do some cost effectiveness analysis as epidemiologists, we will see that by sure we will gain in rapid response, and we will gain by containing threats in their origin. And for this, the investment in field epidemiology is a common concern for all our countries. And keeping this regional networking and also I would like to say that having all this networking together is one of the big concern, how to be integrating all of us together. EPIET, MEDIPIET, MEDILAB, Secure, all of this kind of networking, we have a common objective who is responding to threats timely. And to achieve this goal, one of the tools is training and continue to train people. By sure, some of them will leave the system, but by sure, others will stay for the national level, and if they go to another country and involved by the public health, we gain also, because they are training to work in other countries. For me, it is not the most important thing that to keep them in the country. By sure, we need them, but if we can have them in another country contributing to global health security, there is no problem for this. What is the most important is to keep the international network through WHO, ECDC, CDC, Africa CDC, all this networking, keep all of them working together. Thank you.
Thank you also. I have comments to EPIET and other FETPs and the way how they are done. You said that one aspect is capacity building, another aspect is individual training. We cannot, in fact, separate the two. But what I see very important to stress in EPIET or FETP program, that it's the main point is capacity building, and we have to stress it to the trainees, to the fellows, but also to the countries. So the other thing is in many of European countries, particularly in former Eastern Bloc, there was education of epidemiologists, and these programs in a way continues. And new player, I mean the FETP is in a way, let's say, competing. So we need to find a way how to integrate the two approaches. And another comment is that medical epidemiologists, or they have their continuous professional education. They have to progress, and if they don't do this continuous professional education, then they lose licenses. And it is not true for non-medical epidemiologists. So we are in a, let's say, paradoxical situation. And maybe the last comment, which is maybe optimistic, this year is 50 years from the last case of smallpox. And as Frank, you showed the points, the 10 points, I mean, 8 of these points were based on the success of this eradication. So we have to keep in mind and continue to keep the flag.
Thank you. Other question?
Okay, you have to.
Thank you very much to all panelists, and I will be short, just trying to follow up on Paola with a small country example from my home country, to which is Czech Republic, to which I returned after more than 15 years of serving international organizations, WHO and the ECDC, and was trying to bring back some tasks we are discussing here. And in fact, similarly to Paola's experience and Portuguese experience, we started to implement short workshop, starting with 1 day, and now it's mandatory 2 days workshop for all health professionals. 2 days is for medical doctors, and 1 day, still only 1 day, for other non-medical health professionals before they will go to the specialty, postgraduate specialty exam for their discipline. They have to pass, medical doctors, 2 days workshop, which is focused on health legislation, public introduction, and summary of public health, communication ethics, and within the legislation, we are mentioning global health issues, we are mentioning IHR, we are mentioning EU decisions on cross-border threats. So we are trying, in fact, to bring the global health security issues to at least within this very short workshop to all health professionals in the country, and it's mandatory for all. 2 days for medical doctors, 1 day for non-medical health professionals. And to go beyond it for medical students. At my new university, it's Palacký University in Olomouc, at the medical and dentistry faculty, which is very much interested in internationalization. And we prepare now new curricula for institutional accreditation. And already now in our current academic year, we added to the health policy issues and to health protection, disease prevention, and health promotion, the aspects of global health security. So it's stepwise process, but we are trying to add these issues. And in the end, in fact, it's a question to the whole panel, but in particular to ECDC, because we are EU country, and I'm also working with ASFER, Association of Schools of Public Health in the European region, if there will be the possibility to develop some e-learning or training courses which we then translate our PhD students or ourselves into the national language and to use it for our training at all levels for health professionals to update there. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. I think this is a very interesting and attractive idea, because it's true that what we can do with online courses is actually this design of what they call micro pills or micro learning. So in this area, if it is about the legal framework, in the case of the European Union, it should be probably related to the context of how to strengthen preparedness with the decision 1082. I think we would need to talk with the Commission maybe about this idea, but also in general about how to include the aspect of prevention and control of communicable diseases in the curriculum for undergraduate or graduate students. I think this is a very attractive idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much all for the interesting presentations. I have 4 questions. The first one is for Dr. Bertera. It is obvious, and not only from your presentation, that in WHO the usefulness of the FETP, of the field epidemiology programs, is very well perceived, and they are used as capacity for intervention at the international level. My question is there any strategical specific agenda for the support of FETPs around the world by WHO? Have you ever considered that? My second question is addressed to Frank. I must say that partially it was part of the reply was provided with a previous question, but I would like to insist, addressing the question to your Commission head. The Commission has been investing money to FETPs for the last 22 years. We have heard the concerns mainly related to the individual follow-up of fellows and the use within. But I think that for us in the public health environment, it is important to have a clearer idea of why the Commission is investing all this money for the last 22 years. What is the perception of added value and of benefit for the Commission? My third, and if during the last years you have revised your agenda, I haven't finished, Frank. If during the last years the new IHR and the health security agenda made you modify your choices and your priorities. And for Carmen and Sahar, I would like to have the same question. Many epidemiologists at the international level have participated in the preparation of the new IHR. After it came into force and after the health security agenda was established, have the curricula of the European FETP and of the Egyptian been evaluated if they fulfill or if they can serve the capacities that are required by the IHR?
So, as regard to WHO, as I said, WHO receives a mandate of ensuring the implementation of the international health regulation, and that includes the development of capacities, national capacities. So we have in Lyon, the WHO office, which is in charge of these trainings. We train several generations of AP and lab technicians. The problem is the turnover in the countries. So we train a lot of people, and after a while they disappear. So it's interesting to see at country level what's happening. First, there are part of public health programs which are more attractive than others, and that's usually the one for which there is a lot of money. For instance, polio. So you train people, they first switch to polio. When you expected them to work on EPI, for instance, they switch to polio. And after a while, you lose them because they work for an international organization, including WHO. And we have a part of the culpability in this, but also abroad. And as soon as you have trained someone and is quite good, he's leaving the country. So that's a real issue, and I think that the FETP program and this kind of Medipiet example, I consider that the countries are much more involved in the training of their staff, and they are more in a position to keep their staff working for the country. That's what I've observed. Now, I could just add something after 15 years of outbreak response at WHO. I can say that, in fact, the epidemiologist, that's a specialty which is less difficult to find when you look for people for an outbreak response. Why? Because thanks to this FETP, we have quite a big resource of person. What is missing is that what is going with this AP. And we are observing that we have less and less clinicians with a public health experience, public health perspective. We have less and less lab specialists, biologists with a public health expertise. And very often we observe some AP just alone at the front line when there is an outbreak. And APs, that's a specialty, but that's not clinical medicine, that's not lab. And when you are alone as an AP, you can't do everything, and you can't know everything. So when you are lucky for having a medical doctor who are also epidemiologists, they have another approach, or even vets, they have another approach. So I think that maybe one of the challenges that's also in this kind of training to include medical doctors, lab technicians, to give them this sense of the epidemiology of public health, because too often that's what we observe, and I can tell you that the outbreak response doesn't work when you just have AP on the field. AP, as I said, that's at the crossroad of all the action, but when you have an outbreak, it starts with patients, and it starts with medical practice. And just an example, it's very difficult to do a case definition when you are an AP, when the situation is very confused and it's difficult to identify what is a medical case, what is a patient. And recently we had an outbreak like that, where because we had no clinician in the field to sort out among all the patients arriving who were the one making a batch of patients. And if you don't have this very first step in the outbreak response, the AP just after is not able to make a case definition, you know. And we had several recent outbreaks where we are unable to identify what were the cause of this outbreak, because we had AP in the field, but we had no one around to support this AP. So I think it's important to keep something coherent in the field, and giving this sense of the epidemiology and public health to other persons which are involved in this outbreak is very important.
Yeah, I feel unfairly treated here, so it's too difficult a question, Nicoletta. But why do we spend so much attention to it? If you compare that to many of the other investments we're doing, it's a big one. Well, it's enough, I think, to see that we have, over the years, since 1993, we started to work, because of the Treaty of Maastricht at that time, still EU 12, but really embed into the response that we've built. Surveillance, training, and information and scientific advice, which became then later the role of ECDC. Over the years, we have been able to embed what we learned into the legislation. And the legislation gave us not only the need, but the right also to spend the funds, the money to deliver that. The second part, I think, of the question is also to see how we have grown over the years. We have grown because we had HIV/AIDS in the late 80s, early 90s that created a problem. That public health became in the international attention to deal and for the Commission to spend the proper mechanisms to fund responses to it. Later came BSE, which generated the establishment of further collaboration on foodborne and establishment of EFSA. SARS led into the establishment of ECDC because we were not able anymore at that moment with the different projects to continue doing it. And we had the same situation in EPIED in 1999 when after 6 years of funding, basically the tap stopped running. We had to find a way to embed it. The solution also came or comes from just looking at what brings a public health system down in a country. Make a map of where a minister of health had to resign because of a public health problem. It's not because diabetes, it's not because overweight, it's not because many of the public health problems that we as an epidemiologist will recognize, but it's because of a new and emerging infectious diseases. That's what brings a system down. That's why we have to be able to tackle it, to get the best training and the best people to address it and to find commonly, jointly, all together an answer. We have the tools, we have the funds to do it, but yes, we do it because that's our weakest part. It may not be the biggest public health problem, but if we don't deliver an answer to these issues, then we become very weak for all the other issues. So it's not a satisfactory answer, it's a de facto answer of where we can find our most vulnerable part, and the best way to address it is, I think, in what we have established across the EU and what ECDC and each of you now also on a wider scale is developing. So that makes us feel secure. That's why we're also now in the security agenda. We are, in a sense, just part of that system that allows us to feel secure in our environment, and we're willing to put money on the table for that. That's the EU added value, but I would not like to be quoted for saying just this, because there is, of course, a lot more EU added value. There's a whole scientific drive around it, there's a whole collaborative part, there's all the friendships that have been created, and the fact that even in this room we can talk together with groups, with nations that would outside this room maybe have a problem. And I think that's even a bigger success than just the previous EU added values which I showed. So I think we have a lot to look back to, and we have been able to secure that. How far we can continue to secure it with decreasing funds, that I don't know. I don't have the crystal ball there, but it requires also the convincing elements to keep pushing and to keep moving it forward. From within the Commission, from within the EU institutions, but also from outside. Also, you at national level, each of you need also to shake on the same tree. We are very concerned at the Commission level that we see countries, well, giving up or suspending at least their national training program. That creates more difficulty for ECDC, that creates a question mark also on this EU added value. So we have jointly to address it. It's not a single operation, it's a commitment of all. And I think in that sense, it's an EU added value that is both responded by my part of the story, but also by your part of the story.
have a similar problem. I think it's quite a complex question. How did we consider the context of international health regulations in the curriculum of the program or in the activities that we conduct? I think that, well, there are two aspects. One is, for example, the all hazards approach, which is also something that is brought up in the decision on preparedness. So in this regard, we are still in the program in maybe more modest context where we are still prioritizing communicable diseases, prevention and control, but I would never say that we are restricted, because I think that we recognize that the methods can be applicable to threats that are not infectious diseases. And in real life, fellows in EPIET are really sometimes conducting studies that are not purely infectious diseases. So I think that is broad and it is about the method. But there is something else, and I think it's a bit related to what I said earlier, and is that when you look at the different chapters of detection, prevention, response, there is many different moments where training is mentioned, and in many of them it refers to training of response teams, multidisciplinary training, and I think that when we are having our programs, one thing is what is the requirement to start and then to become later a field epidemiologist, because the input is different professions, but then the training is in field epidemiology. So we train that profile. But the question is how we reach out to other training programs as well. And here what I can tell you is that we have a very good collaboration with the European Food Safety Authority, with EFSA, because they are just now starting their second cohort of, they call it the EU Fellowship Program for Food Risk Assessors. So it's only 1 year duration. It's not, I think, under the category of an FETP, but I think that is very relevant for us when we have the next public health event with foodborne diseases, that our fellows or our faculty work together in the response, or maybe in training activities. We are discussing also exchange of materials and experience. So I think it's very important that we coordinate better between different players and between those that are delivering this kind of training. So I'm not sure if I have a proper answer, then we will need to go more into the detail, but I think it's very important what you ask.
Okay, thank you, Nicoletta, for this difficult question. Of course, that LHR regulations is something related to political issue. When I am talking about Egypt, and we are facing some problems in security issues and some terrorism and so on. So sometimes every country has its criteria for adding or deleting some of the contents. Our colleagues are trained about the frame of the IHR. All of them know what is the IHR, what is the regulation, how can they, what is the fake, and so on. This is the frame of the IHR regulation. But we have in Egypt focal points and several departments for IHR. Some of them are FHB graduate for the IHR. They are FHB graduate, but they take some extra training regarding the IHR separately from the curriculum of our FHB program. This may be related to our situation, a special situation for Egypt. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your interventions. I think that it's quite similar what I wanted to ask to the panelists. I think that the FETP model is quite older than IHR, the new IHR, no? And maybe we we are asking FETP programs to solve something that it was not addressed to. So maybe I was wondering, are the FETP enough to develop the IHR capacities at country level or even at regional level? Or should we design a training program, or maybe better, a training strategy, IHR core capacity driven, in order to cope to these, if we want to set up these capacities, maybe we have to redesign the issue. But maybe I think that the field epidemiology training program should be part, but I think that for global health security, we need a broader strategy and to think at different levels and to find different synergies, not only at country level that can be adapted at the country needs, but also at cross-border with our neighbors and also at regional level. Because we have a strong tool. IHR is a strong tool because it's a regulation that all the countries are obliged to communicate, but it is also an excuse to develop your own capacities. So, but for this redesign the strategy of training in order to build capacity at country level, we need to involve other sectors. Otherwise, we will always be focused on from our public health or EPI or doctors or whatever. Many countries are not accepting other disciplines than medical doctors. I understand that what Eric said, that you need also clinicians in the field, but you need also other disciplines. If you do not train them together and you make links as EUFEM and EPI do in this small area, it can be extended to others. So we need a wider approach. And last, I would like to highlight that global health security, we always think on emergencies, usually, but we need also to focus on prevention and in programs to reduce inequalities. Otherwise, we will have the more and more emergencies because we are not attending coping with the normal situations. So.
Yes, to start with the end of your intervention, clearly global health security that's much broader than IHR and crisis committee, crisis emergencies. And to me, a good example is that the extended program of immunization. To implement and assess this program, which is of top importance for global health security, that's a matter of field AP. Making an immunization coverage array, that's field AP. So to me, FETP goes much beyond the crisis. Now, is FETP can summarize the needs in terms of strengthening national capacity for global health security? Of course not, because first, by definition, we are just talking of epidemiologists. And there are other needs, key needs, basic needs, which are of top importance for global health security and crisis, which are, for instance, lab or infection prevention and control. And in the recent years, we saw how important was this issue of IPC in the management of outbreaks. So you can have all the EP you want if you have a very weak health system. And if you don't have the basis of infection prevention and control, you will go straight to the catastrophe and whatever all the EP you have trained. So I think that FETP is a very good example, a very good model, but it should be replicated to other specialty in order to create this kind of network, regional network, which are of top importance for managing emergencies and crises, which by definition do not respect the borders.
Other questions and comments?
Thank you very much for this esteemed panelist. Actually, my perception, first perception that maybe I am right, maybe I am wrong, that the field epidemiology training program is a successful tool, successful task force, successful people, successful programs, successful institution, that most of the organizations, programs, initiatives are competing to use this tool and use this task force, achieving their objectives and activities. This is what I perceive. Again, I come back to the title of this roundtable, which is the role of field epidemiology training program in the global health security. Actually, I am speaking as my graduate from the FATB since 2002, and I am working as a steward for the public health crisis and public health issues in my country. And actually, it's an honor to me to be a steward for saving light and working for the human and the humanity all these years of my life, and I would like to continue this. Let us, steward, maybe is an expression outside, make it a frontline, sincere army who are working to achieve the global health security in terms of prevention, detection, and response. So, actually, from these points of view, I align myself with what is asked by Nicoletta regarding to the donors and supporters to revise their agendas and sincerely support the field epidemiology training programs, however it is in the name of the FATB, in the name of the EPIET, in the name, whatever is the head who are working in the field of epidemiology and capacity building in this issue. The second, I ally also myself with what is taken by Sahar, that is each country actually should be appraised and participate and contribute in this program and request their needs for implementing these forces and the criteria which achieve the objectives for national health security, and by the way, it will serve the regional and the global security as in the meantime. So the front line actually in the level of the central and the level of the intermediate and the distal level is actually crucial issue. Lastly, please define the areas which needed to or near to the threats for the global public health security. Well, we should go nearer to this and building the capacity in these areas and rural disease. And from this point, actually, I give an example for the networks that are working to support the FATB, which is Infinite, which is working in the Eastern Mediterranean region. In between 22 countries, only 2 or 3 countries of them are stable, and the other are unstable and a very, very miserable and severe condition. And thank you very much.
Thanks. I would like to come back to the question of Kansha. It's a crucial question. Is the FETP program or enough to develop the AI chair because they are older and it's enough for the AI chair issues? I think, as it was said, it's not enough. But we have to keep in mind that the situation is different from country to country. Once the country is really in a difficult situation, as many countries in our area, I mean in my area, where there is a lack of human resources, there is a weakness of the public health system, where there is no enough of people to do the work, the basic work. FETP is basic. It's the first step to be sure that we are under the framework of the global security. So we have to keep in mind that FETP is a big issue to develop our strategy but we need many other things, and we have to keep in mind that we have to build on this basics of field epidemiology. That means when we talk about field epidemiology, that means the surveillance system is working as an early warning system, and the workforce is qualified to deal with the threats. And now we have to develop an adequate response. This is the basics, and we have to develop our skills. Once the system and the resource are enough, as the case of the developed country, we need to develop many other things, because time is running, and a new paradigms and a new concept or in development. But we should keep in mind that the FETP is the main steps and the main investment we have to develop in the countries where we need really this investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So up we had 2 hours with this discussion, with that roundtable on the role of field epidemiology training programs in the global health security. We had 7 panelists from global, regional, and national levels, and we had 7 participants from the floor who did 7 questions and 7 comments. Thank you very much.